Stadia, this is a platform that continues to be the personification of why are you here? What is the point of your existence? We are looking at a service that is way too dependent on internet connection for gaming. You don't get to physically or locally own your games. Stadia is still missing a bunch of features. It's still missing a bunch of games, doesn't have the library to support it. Games flat out look and perform worse, and yet despite all of this, we're expected to shell out full price for individual games and pay monthly for basic features like 4K 60 FPS, which Stadia doesn't even deliver on. Games don't run at 4K 60 FPS. A lot of them don't. As if all of that wasn't enough, let's take a look at the Stadia version of Borderlands 3, which released recently, except it released in a worse state than you'd find it on other platforms currently. So the following information comes from the official Borderlands 3 website, which posted the following announcement detailing that, quote, Borderlands 3 available at special launch price on Stadia. Here's the thing about this version of the game. Not only does it not run at 60 frames per second, as Stadia promised all their games would run, we are looking at a version of the game that is in worse shape because it is actually a 2-month-old version of the title. So it reads right here, we aim to achieve feature parity for all versions of Borderlands 3 early in 2020, but for the moment, the version of the game that you play on Stadia has benefited from the updates and fixes that were released through October 24th. So any patches or content updates that came after October 24th are missing, and there's plenty of stuff that came after October 24th. Noteworthy features coming soon to the Stadia version of Borderlands 3 include endgame content like the takedown at the Maliwan Black Site and Mayhem 4 difficulty, dedicated loot pools for bosses, and additional bank space. These are the missing features in the Stadia version of Borderlands 3. We also have this article from Kotaku further detailing the situation, talking about how it's not only missing some content and features, but also, quote, that content update also fixed some annoying bugs like one that was causing the game's menus to feel extra sluggish and added dedicated loot pools for bosses to make getting certain legendary guns easier. So it's not just content updates, it's also just quality of life updates and fixes that were really beneficial to the game. And to make a bad situation worse, turns out content that's coming to Borderlands 3 will be delayed on Stadia, whereas on consoles and PC it's going to release on time. So it states right here, the first Borderlands 3 campaign add-on, Moxxi's Heist of the Handsome Jackpot, will be coming to Stadia early in 2020, whereas on other platforms, as detailed by PC Gamer, quote, Stadia players are going to have to wait for the first expansion, which arrives on other platforms later this week, and other content that's already been released. PC Gamer also detailed what players are missing out from patches and fixes and updates that have been released since October 24th, so it reads right here. It also means going without patches and hotfixes that have been released since October 24th. The update that added takedown at the Maliwan Black Site and Mayhem 4, for instance, also increased the number of vending machines in the game, rebalanced Mo, Zane, and Flak, and made a large number of bug fixes and changes to the UI, missions, and more. This is all what Stadia players are missing out on top of an upcoming expansion. There are currently plenty of reasons to not buy games on Stadia, to buy them on other platforms instead. But now we're learning that some games might launch in outdated form. Is that supposed to inspire confidence in Stadia's ability to be a relevant competitor to the other platforms out there? It's just a bad look for a platform that claims to be better than consoles. This is a platform where games are supposed to look and run better because of Stadia's powerful servers at 10.7 teraflops or whatever, which is about twice as much as Xbox One X. This is a platform where you supposedly don't have to worry about things like content updates, patch downloads, and whatnot, because all of that is taken care of behind the scenes. But such advertised benefits are rendered useless when games not only look and run worse on Stadia versus other platforms, but also release versions of games that are outdated, that don't have important fixes and important content updates. Here's an article from news outlet Forbes further highlighting the situation, with this paragraph stating it's an especially bizarre misstep because one of the main selling points for Google Stadia is that you never have to download patches. Your game is stored on the server and it's it's always up to date with no downloads of any kind. And then to top it all off, Borderlands 3 on Stadia is missing one key feature: split-screen multiplayer, local multiplayer. Now, to be fair, the PC version doesn't have this either for whatever reason, and that's something that Gearbox is to be blamed for. It makes no sense that they wouldn't implement this feature across the board, but split screen is on consoles, and Stadia is trying to compete with both consoles and PC, saying that it's the ultimate gaming platform and service. But if the games there just flat out don't have features that you can find on consoles, which people enjoy, then why get this game on Stadia? There are already plenty of reasons to not invest in Stadia, and this is just the cherry on top. Not to mention that in the Borderlands 3 official Stadia launch trailer, it is advertised right here: play with anyone at any time online or in split-screen co-op. But the feature is clearly missing in the Stadia version. Now, for some reason, this video is unlisted, and I don't know if it's because it was recognized that there's false marketing right here, though they could have just changed the description. And then beyond all that, there's also the fact that Borderlands 3 happens to be yet another game that does not run at the promised 4K 60 frames per second, which makes no sense for a platform that's, again, twice as powerful as Xbox One X. You can set it in balanced mode so that it runs at 1080 60 FPS, but that's not the same as 4K 60 frames per second. And I get that this has in part to do with Gearbox's optimization of the game on Stadia. It should be noted that Borderlands 3 just isn't a game that's well optimized all around. It doesn't have a stable frame rate even on Xbox One X and PS4 Pro, and even on PC, there's been reports of performance issues. I get that in part the responsibility of 4K 60 FPS lies on the developers and not necessarily on Google, but the problem with Stadia is that it is selling 4K 60 FPS. It is marketing 4K 60 FPS as if it's a sure thing and asking people to pay monthly for that feature. But if you can't deliver on that across the board, then you should not be charging money for it. Period. Now, it is being touted that Borderlands 3 on Stadia is currently on sale for $38.99 instead of the usual $60. But here's the thing, other storefronts also sell it at about that price, so Epic Games Store has Borderlands 3 also for $38.99. Now, before a few days ago, I did check this, and it was $60 when it was $38.99 on Stadia, but now Epic Games Store's caught up, and on Amazon, for example, you can get this game for $35 on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, which have split-screen co-op, which the Stadia version is missing. And that's, of course, on top of the missing content, missing patches, missing updates, and the delayed add-on to the campaign. Actually, never mind, I just reloaded the Amazon listing. It's even cheaper. It's $30 right now compared to Epic Games Store's and Stadia's $38.99. So there's better offers out there, and you get flat out a better experience. And this comes in shortly after reports of other games that recently launched on Stadia that just flat out are worse on this platform. So Final Fantasy 15 on Stadia, it runs at 1080p 30 frames per second, which is on parity with base PS4. And not just in terms of resolution and frame rate, but also in terms of the graphic settings. They're closer in line with consoles rather than PC, despite Stadia being so powerful, being 10.7 teraflops or whatever. And then Metro Exodus on Stadia, it does achieve 4K, but not 60 frames per second, which it should, given that, again, it's twice as powerful as Xbox One X. And Eurogamer noted in this article that for some reason, during busy graphical moments, Stadia has more frame rate hitches and isn't quite as stable as it is on Xbox One X. And not to mention that due to the streaming compression, the darker areas, you can see a lot of artifacting. And then here's a Windows Central article further highlighting the difference between Xbox One X versions of games versus Stadia versions. And as you can see, a lot of these Stadia games do not run at 4K 60 FPS. A lot of them are either 4K 30 or 1080 60. Some just flat out 1080 30, which is just baffling to me. There are only very select few games that actually achieve that 4K 60 FPS. And then I've talked about how Destiny 2 maxes out at 1080 60 FPS, or how Red Dead Redemption 2 maxes out at 1440p 30 when on Xbox One X, which is half as powerful as Stadia, runs the game at 4K 30. So yeah, once again, this all further goes to show that Stadia needs to change its business model. There are too many drawbacks on Stadia currently for it to be a service that can get away with charging full price for individual games. If it had the benefit of being the Netflix of games, where you get a whole library of games for a monthly fee, then maybe people could look past some of these hitches and stumbles. But as things currently stand, the value simply isn't there. You're paying about the same, if not more, for worse versions of existing products. This is on top of the $130 you currently have to pay for to gain access to Stadia at all. That's like buying a console. And yes, it's a little cheaper than regular consoles, but with that monthly fee, $10 a month for 4K 60 FPS, that eventually adds up and you might end up spending more. And when Stadia does end up launching the basic model, where you don't have to pay a monthly subscription, where you just buy individual games, you'll be topped at 1080 60 FPS, but that 1080p is compressed 1080, and I've seen what that looks like on Chrome, and it does not look great. You definitely need 4K to make up for the fact that you're being streamed compressed footage. I guess if you're a casual gamer, you won't care that much, but Stadia's seemingly trying to appeal to hardcore gamers based on the types of games that they're releasing here. And why would any hardcore gamer want that much of a graphical compromise, resolution and frame rate compromise for a service where you don't even own your games, where if this service shuts down, all your purchases are gone? And let's face it, Google has a history of giving up on planned products and services when the going gets tough. So the future is uncertain with Stadia. So yeah, this is where we're at, folks. Borderlands 3 on Stadia is flat out a worse version. So let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on the Stadia version of Borderlands 3 and the overall state of Stadia currently. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.